Hello, and welcome to the Penguin Training on Site Setup. So what is site setup? Site setup is a number of processes that are required before a site can be activated to recruitment. Setup is the process of identifying and preparing interesting sites for site initiation and activation, the gathering of information from sites and assessing site suitability, local approval, clinical trial agreements, and informing the local regulatory boards or committees of the Principal Investigator site participation in the trial. What are the aims of site setup? The aims of site setup are to ensure the investigator and site team have capacity to participate and fully prepared to commence recruitment, that all persons involved in implementing the protocol are adequately informed about the trial. We meet our regulatory obligations as a sponsor, which includes defining, establishing and allocating all trial-related duties and functions, and to ensure the responsibilities of participating investigators are understood. Key stages to green light. A site is required to get a green light from the sponsor before recruitment can start. For a site to receive a green light, the following stages must be completed. Contract phase, site suitability, pre-submission phase, local regulatory submission, logistics, equipment and staff, site initiation visit, training. Greater detail will now be provided on how to complete each of these stages. The contract phase. The contract phase involves several processes and is dependent on whether the centre is a hub or a spoke. Contracts have to be in place between the University of Birmingham and the hub and the spoke before recruitment can begin. This will outline what is provided to assist with undertaking the trial. For example, resource requirements, data protection issues and trial finance. A hub contract between the University of Birmingham and the hub is required for the trial. If a hub has participated in or is participating in Falcon or Cheetah, the contracts between the University of Birmingham and the hub institutions should already be in place. However, if a new institution is joining the Penguin trial, a hub contract must be implemented between the University of Birmingham and the new hub. In addition, specific trial contracts are required between the University of Birmingham and the hub, referred to as a clinical trial agreement, and it is the sponsor's responsibility to provide these contracts. The contract is in addition to the hub contract. Agreements between the hub and spoke centres has been implemented before a spoke hospital can begin recruitment. It is the responsibility of the hub and can be in the form of a memorandum of understanding describing the outline of the agreement before a formal contract is executed between the hub and the spoke. In addition to the contracts, due diligence checks are required for hub and spoke centres. Again, if a centre has participated in Falcon and or Cheetah, this check may have been performed and does not need to be repeated for Penguin. For any new centres, hubs or spokes, due diligence is required. It is the responsibility of the sponsor to request this check for a hub, and it is the hub's responsibility to request this check for a spoke. It's also the responsibility of the hub to ensure the spoke centres are suitable to participate in the trial. This will include, but not limited to, ensuring they can deliver the trial interventions, specifically the lower oxygen concentration of 21 to 35%, ensure research staff are available to inform patients of the trial, and follow up patients at the required time points. This concludes what is involved in the contract phase of site setup. During contract negotiations, spoke should be identified and discussions about the trial should take place with local investigators. The following considerations should be addressed. Are there additional resource requirements to deliver Penguin? For example, staffing, equipment, intervention supply? Who's in the best place to negotiate contracts at the centre? Who will apply for regulatory approvals, and when will this process take place? Who will be responsible for various trial-specific tasks? For example, approaching patients, monitoring intervention supplies, and completing case report forms. Pre-submission and local regulatory stage. First, we'll discuss pre-submission. Pre-submission involves a number of tasks to ensure the trial can be submitted to a local ethics committee or institutional review board and/or competent authority for approval. Penguin protocol will be sent to participating centres. Country-specific changes can then be made to sections of the protocol. These will be indicated by red text within specific sections of the protocol. If amendments to the protocol have been made, please ensure these changes are reflected in the patient information sheet and informed consent form if required. Any documents that are translated into local written language are required to be back translated, with copies sent to the Birmingham Clinical Trials Unit for review. This includes the protocol, patient information sheet, and informed consent forms. It's also important to determine in the pre-submission phase whether the trial will be classified as a clinical trial of a medicinal investigational product, trial of a CTEMP. This is because additional safety reporting may be required and the protocol will have to be updated within this section too. So moving on to local regulatory submissions. The Hub will identify what local and/or national submissions are required for the trial. They would also provide support for spoke centres with local or institutional ethics submissions. When a centre is in a position to submit for ethical and/or competent authority approval, the trial documents have been amended to fulfil any country-specific requirements regulations. An application should be submitted to the relevant local ethics committee or institutional review board and/or competent authority, whichever is applicable. Local Penguin research teams should publicise the trial at the departmental meetings and look to develop a patient pathway with other departments within their hospital or medical centre. The Penguin trial team will initiate clinical trial insurance for participating countries and will supply insurance certificates. During the pre-submission phase, it is important to ascertain whether the protocol, patient-facing documents, or the 30-day follow-up script require translation into another language. It's also important as well to make any country-specific changes to the protocol. This could include whether consent can be taken by research nurses, whether children can be recruited, and the legal age of majority. For the regulatory submission, it is important to ascertain which submissions are required. Is it to a local ethics committee? Is it an institutional review board? Or is it to a competent authority? Within this as well, identify the specifics of the submission. So which documents are required? Is there a cost to the submission? Different types of formats for submission. Can it go in by email or does it have to be hard copies? When are the meeting dates of the committees? The estimated turnaround times? How comments queries will be managed when feedback is provided on the documents? And just to reiterate, clinical trial will be provided by the University of Birmingham. For a site to be given the green light, we have to ensure the interventions can be accessed, the necessary staff are in place to deliver the trial, and staff have completed the required training. The trial involves 2 interventions. These are 0.2% chlorhexidine mouthwash and medical inspired oxygen. Interventions should be sourced locally wherever this is possible and from a reputable supplier. Hospitals or medical centres that cannot source interventions locally should arrange for these to be supplied by the hub. This arrangement should be identified during the contract negotiations between the two institutions. Staff and training. All staff working on Penguin must be adequately trained on the trial protocol and associated processes to enable them to perform the trial-specific tasks delegated to them by the Principal Investigator. Good clinical practice training is mandatory for all staff performing trial-specific tasks. If staff members have completed GCP training as part of the Falcon or Cheetah trial, this does not need to be repeated for Penguin. However, GCP training must be updated every 2 years. Everyone working on the trial must attend site initiation training, either to complete this in person or via video teleconference. All investigators must provide their CV, and this must be signed and dated within the last 2 years. All trial-related training should be documented on the Penguin training log. An online training platform will be provided for the Penguin trial, and this can be accessed through the REDCap database. A link to the online training will be provided to all research staff members. The training is aimed at research staff who will be participating within the trial. This includes, but not excluded to, research nurses, data managers, principal investigators. The modules include site setup, patient pathway and informed consent, patient follow-up, blinding, data management, safety reporting, using the REDCap database, and non-compliance reporting. Research staff will self-certify by indicating at the end of the form your name, position, and modules completed. All members of the research team must have completed the online training modules appropriate to their role in the trial. We will run reports on REDCap to confirm staff have completed the appropriate modules before the green light will be issued. So what is the Penguin training log? The purpose of the training log is to document when staff members involved in the conduct of the trial are trained on trial specifics, to ensure the trial is conducting according to the protocol and other trial specific requirements. Examples of training to be recorded are site initiation training, GCP training, site specific training, for example, trial departmental meetings, reviewing SIV slides when new staff join the team. The site signature and delegation log. The purpose of the site signature and delegation log is to identify site staff members who are performing trial tasks during the lifetime of the trial. Ensures staff are being delegated correct and appropriate responsibilities by the Principal Investigator according to their role and training. To demonstrate oversight, the PI must initial each entry to delegate specific responsibilities to site staff. The source data agreement has to be completed for each site. This provides a record of where source data is stored. The location where the source data is stored, for example, paper files or electronic files. It provides information on how data can be accessed by BCTU and or by hubs when visiting spoke sites. Trial data will be entered onto the Penguin REDCap database. This can be accessed by requesting login details and passwords from BCTU. GCP training can be completed online. When this has been completed, please send a copy of the certificate to the Penguin trial team. The final stage in the site setup process for the site initiation visit or teleconference to provide training on the trial and review all the necessary steps that have been taken to open the trial. The Penguin trial team will be responsible for training hubs, and hubs will then provide training to spoke sites. After this has been completed, the site will be ready for activation. The green light, or permission to start recruitment, is issued via a site activation letter once all trial setup activities are completed and appropriately documented. The Penguin trial team will issue the green light to hubs. Hubs will issue the green light to spokes. Spokes will liaise with hubs for assistance when working towards site activation. Thank you for listening to the Penguin site setup training. The next module will be background and trial design.